Hey guys, welcome back to the pit. Today's video is a continuation of my Zombicide build series. In my previous video, I showed you how I built the corner tile structure, so please refer to my video Zombicide build part 3a to see how this was achieved. In today's video, I'll show you how I detailed and weathered the tile exterior and got it game ready. I started out by detailing the shop sign. In my previous video, I built, painted and applied some chipping to the shop sign. So now it's time to add the lettering and some additional weathering. I was thinking about printing out a complete shop sign, but I realized it just wouldn't look right. So I decided to instead print out and cut out each individual letter. A decision I regretted once it came time to actually do it.
I feel like somebody stuck a big club up my ass, and it hurts. I've got to figure out a way to get it out of there.
Once the letters were cut out, I glued them on one by one. I then dirtied them up by stippling on some dark brown paint using a rough sponge. Next, I added a few blotches of Rust Effects wash to random spots. Then, with a fine brush, I created some rust streaks coming from those spots. And once that was done, I fixed the sign to the building. Now it was time to build the doors. I first cut out the basic shape of the door using thick card. I make 2 of these for each door. I then cut out the same shape in thin card, but this time I cut out some rectangular recesses below the windows. I then stick the thin card onto the face of the thick card, ensuring that the edges and windows are aligned. Next, I painted and weathered the outward facing side of each door. I then cut and glued clear plastic card onto the back of the front facing half of the door, and then glued the back half of the door on top of that, ensuring that the edges were aligned. I then added some door handles that were also made of card. I threw a bit of graffiti onto the side door to make it blend in. And finally, I added some rust pigment to the door handles and created some streaks. And once that was done, I glued the doors into place. Then it was time to apply the graffiti. In my previous video, I mentioned that I did some undercover research and shadowed a graffiti street gang for about a month. This may have been a little bit misleading. I did shadow them for about a month, but I never really worked up the nerve to speak with them, so I ended up just watching them from very good hiding spots. Hey you! My research helped me realize that a natural graffiti wall is layered, usually with lots of simple tags interspersed with larger pieces, known as throw-ups or wild style tags. These are a little more elaborate and colourful, often using bubble style or interlock letters. So I decided to apply these learnings and create a natural looking graffiti wall on the side of the building. First step was to start adding some simple tags to the wall, using paint pens in a variety of colours. I also painted on a few simple designs, which I roughly sketched out, filled in with paint, and then went back over the outline to create clean, solid shapes. While the paint was still wet, I took a fine brush and created some run effects. Once I was happy with the first layer, it was time to add the larger pieces. I decided to go with a piece I saw online, on the street. That was the word boom, drawn in a way that resembled a fiery explosion. I first start the process by drawing the outlines of the block lettering, and then fill them in with the first layer of paint. I then use my airbrush to create a dark smoke effect around the lettering using black paint. I then reapplied the orange paint, and used a yellow paint to create a colour progression from light to dark. Finally, I went back over the letter outlines with a red pen. I also added a tag to the glass side door. And then finally, I added another large throw up. Next, I painted up the urban scatter terrain pieces. I started out with this awesome dumpster mini that was given to me by the guys at Pen and Paper Online. I also used a street light, some trash bags, a jersey barrier, also from Pen and Paper Online, and a trash pile with a pizza box on it. I applied the chipping technique to the dumpster and streetlight and created this effect using water and a rough brush. Once the chipping was done, I painted the trash on the open side of the dumpster and then added various shades of rust pigment. I repeated this process with the streetlight. And painted up the jersey barrier and the trash pile. I first glued down the trash pile with liquid nails and then used milliput to expand the trash pile the pizza box was sitting on and blend it into the sidewalk. I imprinted the dumpster into the trash pile, as this is where it would be fixed down later. Next, I poked the milliput with a pen to create an uneven, rough surface. I then smoothed the pile out using water and a palette knife. I then marked out the position of trash bags and added in bits of rubbish or trash and embedded them into the milliput. Once the milliput was dry, I painted the entire pile with German grey. I then applied a dark wash and dry brushed the pile using a mixture of German grey and white. And then I painted the individual pieces of rubbish or trash. Next, before I fixed down any more components, I weathered the footpath around the sides of the building with a wash made up of PVA glue, water, and European soil pigment. I then added a similar wash to the trash pile, but this time using black pigment. Then using pins, superglue, and a hand drill, I fixed down the jersey barrier and dumpster. Finally, I cut a small hole in the corner of the footpath and glued down the streetlight using liquid nails, as well as the trash bags. Finally, it was time to apply the weathering and detailing. I applied the European Earth pigment wash to the windows, focusing on the edges. Next, I placed some grass tufts on the footpath using PVA glue. I made sure that the tufts were in a variety of lengths and colours. I then applied the European Earth pigment wash to the roads, first applying it thick on the edges of the road, and then using the brush to create a smooth gradient from thick to thinner in the middle of the road. Next, I sprinkled on some leaf litter. And then I applied a bit more PVA glue to the areas with leaves to ensure that they were completely fixed down. I then stuck a miniature alcohol label onto a clear bottle I got from a WizKids kit. I then glued the bottle down in front of the dumpster. I then applied a few splotches of the pigment wash onto random areas of the brick face, just to dirty it up a bit. I stuck on a bit of scrim foliage onto various spots on the building. And applied a bit of AK streaking grime onto spots under the scrim foliage. Then I cut out a few newspapers, as well as some mini grocery store packaging templates. I glued the packaging templates around pieces of thick card that were cut to be the same dimensions as the assembled packaging to give them form. Then it was just the nice, relaxing process of gluing down the newspapers and boxes into various random positions. I wanted to fill in the open side of the dumpster a little bit more, so I soaked a pile of fine paper shreds in PVA glue and dark brown pigment, and then placed them inside the bin. I also added a plain cardboard box to the front of the shop. Then, to blend everything in, I added a touch of dark pigment to the newspapers and trash. And then, with a ruined old brush, I applied blood streaks to the shop front windows in order to simulate a bloody hand mark. After all of this, I called the exterior of the building done. Next in the Zombicide build series, I'll detail the interior of this corner store tile, which I hope to have out soon. Thanks everyone for watching, and if you haven't already, please like and subscribe.